everyone, it's Jessie from b.a.r.e Flower Farm. Today is June 21st. It is a Wednesday. Wednesdays are the days where I sell at my flower cooperative. It's about an hour away and I get there by 7:15. The market goes between 8 and 11 a.m. I've gotten a lot of questions about what it's like to sell at that cooperative. So I thought I would do a bit of the behind the scenes of what it's like to prepare and sell there. And it actually all begins after the market is over, because one important thing we need to do is we need to forecast what we're going to have for the week after, because the sales are comprised of both pre-orders and market floor orders. Now, pre-orders take up about 60% of all of the orders, so it's in the grower's best interest to put the flowers that they're going to have the week after online. Now, I'll be honest, this is the piece where I was a little bit less confident in and I still struggle with. And I know that even the more experienced growers also struggle with this too. So basically what I do is after when the market's over, I come out into the field. I sometimes just get out of the car, put the flower buckets away, and then start looking at what I'm going to have. So I'm going to take you through this process, and sometimes you nail it, sometimes you don't. So there's this fine balance between wanting to maximize how much you put on there, but also not over promising, because if you do that and things don't come to fruition in terms of being ready for harvest for next week, then you have to go back to the florist or whoever it is who bought it and say, hey, I'm sorry, like, can I sub it out for something else? So let's get started with this process. Yarrow has been such a great seller for me for the last 2 weeks. I think we have one more week of yarrow for the market and then it's pretty much going to be done. But I sold out all of my yarrow this week. I sold out all my yarrow the past week. I mean, I've basically, I think, done about $300 just in yarrow alone. And I really wish that I had more, because it is so popular, especially for people who are doing weddings. They put them in centerpieces and even the bridal bouquets. So what I find does really well is if I'm able to forecast how many of these types of, I call this like a dusty lavender. How many of these am I going to have? How many of, this like more apricot-y color am I going to have of these? And the creamy white yellows over here, the lavenders over here. So what I try to do is I try to break it up by color instead of mixing it up. And I find that if I'm able to break it up by color, the florists are more likely to buy that bunch versus a mixed bunch. And that's what a lot of the other growers do, because it is really hard to forecast, like, hey, am I going to have 10 of these stems for next week? And how many bunches of these am I going to have? Especially if you're planting a series like the summer berry series or like the Colorado series, right? If you're planting the common yarrow, the yellow yarrow, then obviously that's not an issue because all of them are yellow. But in this case, I find that trying to put a little bit more effort in terms of forecasting certain colors has done a lot better for me. In fact, that's how I sold out all of my market floor bunches today. And there was still some yarrow left over from other growers, and those were the mixed color bunches. Next up, we have foxglove. And to be honest, I was letting these go to seed. They look pretty, but the stem length is really short. So yesterday as I was harvesting, I knew we were going to have a big day today because we did a lot in pre-orders. We had the most amount of buyers buy through the pre-orders. And so I wanted to have more flowers for the market floor to see what I could push. So I thought to myself and said, look, all the foxglove is basically done from the other growers. They grow these impressive, massive foxglove that I honestly just cannot compete with growing outside especially. So I cut them up, and guess what? I had 2 bunches and both of them sold. And one of the customers was a florist who has a wedding this weekend. And she commented, she said, oh, this is going to work great for the bridal bouquet color palette. So it goes to show you that you don't need long towering foxglove necessarily in order to sell it. Sometimes people are using these in smaller centerpiece arrangements and bouquets. So I will likely cut some of these for next week. I should have at least 1 or 2 bunches. So I have another succession of snaps coming in. And the good news with these snaps is, finger crossed, as of yesterday, there were no thrips. Are there thrips in here? Thank God there's no thrips. So I will be able to list some of these snaps, and I'll probably just do like a multicolor listing. I find that typically the straight bunches of the same colors do better, but sometimes these multicolor ones also do well too. Now there's a couple of other growers who grow snaps really, really well. So this isn't something that I would try to focus growing on a lot in the future, but it's one of those things where, hey, if I have it and I don't need it for my CSA bouquets, then I will try to sell it at the market. If you've been following me, you'll know that I have thrips my feverfew, so that is not sellable. That will actually get ripped out. I think that the color is probably a little too yellow for event work, and it's not super easy in my view to pair in bouquets, especially since I have sunflowers coming. So I'm gonna rip those out. I have more feverfew over here. That was the Sunny Ball, and this is the Vegmo. So it's similar to Sunny Ball, except it's white. And these also have thrips. So I'm still undecided about what I'm gonna do with these. Maybe I'll rip out half of them and see if the half that I don't rip out come back next year. But I do have some of the Feverfew Magic Single Series, and that side has thrips. This side, more or less, is either thrip free, or if there are thrips, there's not a lot. So I will be selling bunches of this at the market next week. And I have quite a bit of this, but there are also growers who grow feverfew, and feverfew is one of those fillers that I would say it does okay at the market. It's not a heavy hitter like yarrow, but it does well enough, I think, to earn its keep in the space. We also have Rudbeckia on deck, and there's another grower who's been growing amazing Rudbeckia. I don't think I've seen any of the ruby red Rudbeckia in her stuff, but she has a lot of Prairie Sun. This is actually just Rudbeckia Gold, so it's not the same variety, but they look kind of similar. So I will be listing these. We'll see how they do. And then the good news is I do have some Sahara that are coming up, and this is what they look like. Here's one over here, and then there's another one over here. So not going to get a ton of bunches out of them, but maybe 1 or 2 bunches of the Sahara and a few bunches of the yellow Rudbeckia down there. As you can see, we have some sunflowers that are coloring up and ready soon. This is the peach sunflowers. Sunflowers typically don't do that well with florists in general, I feel. And there was a grower who sold just like one, or she was trying to sell one small bunch, and they didn't do very well. They're the more petite size for bouquets. So I'm gonna hold these for my CSA customers, and when the white lights come, that is when I'm going to list them for the florist co-op, and we'll see how they do. So you can see there's a lot of wind going on, so sorry about the audio quality. We're forecasted to get a lot of storms, which we really need since we haven't had a ton of rain. But look at this down here, so much fungal or fungi activity, which is really good. So I have a bunch of sunflowers. I'm growing a lot less this year since I'm not doing those markets. At least I'm not doing as frequent of the markets. So the goal here is to not use these for my florists, but rather to use them for the CSA bouquets. And the CSA cycle is going to end in a couple of weeks. So for the most part, the timing should work really, really well on these. Couple of other newer listings. I'm still undecided if I'm going to list this sea holly. The stem length isn't great, but to my point about the foxglove, I may not necessarily need these to have fantastic stem length. Even something like this over here is perfectly usable in a smaller bouquet, in a centerpiece. Hi, Chance. Chance wants me to throw the ball for him as usual. So I'll probably list these in bunches of 5 and just note that the stem length is a little bit shorter. But this time of year, as the larkspur is starting to fade out, it's kind of hard to find blues in the florals that we sell until status comes up. So I think these should actually do pretty well, and I might be the only grower who is growing this out of the 8 of us. So I have some more over here, and they're all just starting to color up to this beautiful blue. So by next Wednesday, or I guess Tuesday when I harvest, I would expect the top of these bracts to also turn blue. And yes, I will throw that ball for you, Chance. Here, let's throw for him. Let's see if he's, where is he? He's right over, oh, thanks, right in my amaranth, huh? So he's figured out how to get out of the gate and go find his ball. This here is bee balm, Monarda or Lambada, and I'm really excited for this because this is one of my favorite fillers. It's starting to color up. There was another grower who had this today, and they were flowering at this stage, and she was selling them. So I am going to list these today. Again, I'm not going to get a ton of bunches out of these for next week. You know, sometimes I think it's easier to forecast when it's super sunny versus having a full week of gloomy weather, because I have no idea how many of these are going to bud up and color. So I usually try to be a little bit more conservative here, and I'll bring more to the market floor and hope it sells there. But the goal is to get enough pre-orders where it makes sense for me to make that drive down, because that drive is about 40 miles or about an hour for me. So it's not close by. Last but not least, we've got lilies. Every week I look at these lilies and I say, this is the week, or this is the week where next week I'm going to have lilies, and I get proven wrong. But I am sure that this is the week where I will have Minorca. This one looks like it is ready to pop within the next couple of days. I think it would pop if it were sunny. And so it's going to take a few more days, which is fine because I kind of need that time, because I don't want to put stuff into the fridge if I don't have to. And then this over here is a OT, so an Oriental Trumpet hybrid. It's called Table Dance, and it's a pink one. That one is a LA hybrid, so longifloral Asiatic. These don't have any fragrance, which from what I understand should do better with florists. And these are Orientals, so they do have some scent, but they look really, really great. So I'm hoping I will have some of these at least that are completely open for showcasing next week. I think that there's a bit of educating needed amongst the florists in terms of how versatile lilies are, especially with event work. So I say there's a bit of educating needed because there was another grower who brought 10 bunches of these, God, I forget what they're called, but they're white lilies with these like speckled throats, and they were beautiful and they did not move, and they were priced at such a cheap price that I was like, wow, I can't believe no one's buying this. And I think it's because some of these florists just haven't worked with lilies, or maybe it was the color, but in either case, I am going to highlight that lilies can stay out of water for a long period of time. They have a great vase life. I think they give a designer a lot of buffer and flexibility, because one of these has so many buds that if one were to open and get fragile and break off, you still have some other buds to work with. And because they are relatively long lasting, you could buy a lily today and use it for a wedding in like a week and a half, and everything would be open and still look great and be good out of water. So it's just one of those things where I think that a little bit of education might be able to help push these. And I'm going to see if I can even bring like a few stems in a large vase and showcase what they would look like, because I think they're a really good statement flower, even on their own. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, I'm really hoping that they'll sell at this co-op, because I have a lot of lilies. I mean, you can't really tell from this side alone, but I have more over there, and I would say I have 750 that are planted right now, and I have another 250 coming in a couple of weeks, and then I'm hoping to be able to hit lilies for Thanksgiving. So if I can't sell them at the florist co-op, then I'm gonna have to push them retail, which I feel like I can do. It's a lot more work than showing up to a market for a few hours on a Wednesday morning and selling everything like I did with my yarrow. Hey guys, it's now the day after. Pre-orders started rolling in this morning at 7 a.m. We've got 3 pre-orders. So I've got a bunch or 2 bunches of yarrow, a bunch of feverfew, and a bunch of ruby rudbeckia that have been ordered. And today we had 2 bouquet pickups. Tomorrow I've got 4 CSA bouquet pickups. So that's a total of 6 bouquets. And 6, it doesn't sound like a lot, but again, it's something that I really need to be mindful of in terms of when I'm harvesting for these bouquets, because I want to make sure that I am not taking stems that I need for next week and allowing things that could be picked right now but to go to full maturity for next week for those types of varieties that have been ordered. And for those that are basically at like 100% maturity that have been ordered, I will pick for those CSA bouquets. Now luckily I've got lilies coming in, so each of those bouquets will have a lily stem. I've got a bunch of rudbeckia now blooming. Some sunflower are also coming in. The problem is I don't have a lot of filler, and people have suggested me go forage or go find some sort of greenery. I would love to go forage. There's a lot of poison ivy, there's a lot of ticks. I don't have a ton of time. I spent my time trellising tomatoes today. There's a storm coming. It's just not something that I want to do in terms of going to go forage. And I know that the bouquets might be missing a bit of green, but it's fine because my customers still really like the color from the yarrow. Now, the only limitation there is that I have a limited amount of yarrow and I need to be careful with how much I put into a bouquet. But I think that I should be fine. And I was very conservative on how much yarrow I put up for pre-orders because I'd rather bring more to the market floor than commit for pre-orders and then put myself in a pinch, especially for the CSA bouquets. And sometimes I get random a la carte orders for single bouquets throughout the week. And here's the yarrow that is left. I might need a little bit more for my CSA bouquets. There's a bunch more down there too, but this color sold. The dusty lavender also sold. The apricot sold. So I just have to be careful in terms of keeping those in. And even though I have buds over here, from my experience, even when it's sunny, it's not going to make it to next week, and it's going to be cloudy all week. So I'm a little bit nervous in terms of what those clouds mean for next week. And sorry for the background noise. Tractor's going. We're doing some cleanup right now too. So I don't know what I was so nervous about because I had more than enough yarrow. Here are what the CSA bouquets look like. Each one has a lily stem, and so I think they look pretty good. The colors are all popping and screaming summer. Hey guys, it's now Saturday, which happens to be the second most popular day for pre-orders. So we've got a couple more orders, and I just want to show you what it looks like in terms on the receiving end for me on the Rooted Farmers platform. So this is what it looks like when I go into the orders tab. It's pretty simple. It aggregates how many orders I have, including the total pre-order volume amount, and then it breaks it down by customer. So if I click on one of these orders, for example, this customer ordered 2 bunches, one of the yarrow, one of the magic single feverfew, I know I have 1 bunch of each that I need to pick for them. And what I would do is when I pick them, I would wrap them and put their name onto that wrapper. And so when I get to the market, I can just put it into their bucket or section at the market floor area. So we try to make sure we keep the market floor that is sold as a free-for-all separate from the pre-orders. And we always make sure we label the craft paper sleeves so that we know who it goes to if it belongs in a pre-order. The other thing that I like to do here is there is a capability of setting up a harvest list. Now for something like yarrow, I have the multiple different kinds of colors, but it doesn't actually show me the description. So sometimes I forget, is this one a blush? Is it a dusty lavender? So when I put together the harvest list, I can put in the description and then I print it out, and then I can use that and check it off as I am going out to harvest to make sure that I have everything that I need. Now the pre-orders will continue rolling in until we close the platform at 4 p.m. on Monday. And basically all of Tuesday, we get a chance to harvest. So people aren't allowed to pre-order. And if they want more flowers, then they would have to come to the market floor on Wednesday when they pick up to buy more. You also don't necessarily need a pre-order in order to come to the market floor, but you do need a buyer's pass in order to access these wholesale prices. So what happens is now is I kind of just wait to see if there's any more pre-orders. I will list other stuff up for sale if it's ready outside. I took a quick walk outside because of how cloudy it's been and the amount of rain we've gotten. There really hasn't been additional progress in terms of things blooming and me thinking that it's going to be ready by next Tuesday for when I need a harvest. Now, just to give you an idea of relative scale, I am definitely the smallest grower by far. I would say that of the growers who show up consistently, there's like 8 of us total, and I would say that 5 growers show up basically every single week. If I have a good week, it's like a $200 week. But those really good growers can easily add a 0 on top of that. So they grow in hoop houses. They have a lot of volume. They're doing over $1,000 in pre-orders alone. So it's really cool to be able to really hang out with those people at the market and learn from them, see what they're growing. They're growing stuff that I've never even seen on those typical flower intro workshops, because they're catering to florists and doing wedding work. So there's a lot of perennials that they grow, which is something that I lack. The knowledge of perennials and what to grow is definitely something that I can improve a lot in. So I've been able to learn a lot just from observing and showing up. So I don't show up for a $150 order to drive 2 hours and to sell $150. Like, it's nice, but it's not necessarily the greatest use of my time if that's my main objective. My main objective is to go and to interact with the other growers, and then also see what they're selling, see what moves, listen to what the florists are saying, and get a much better idea of what I could be growing next year and improving my growing from that perspective. Everyone, it is now Monday, June 26th, and it is time to harvest. I've got a lot of yarrow that is pretty much in the very mature stage. I want to get to them before the heat of the day gets here, as well as we're going to have some more rain and thunderstorms. So it's a great time to harvest. It's just a little bit before 7 a.m. I already have some in my bucket over here. You can see that it is fully mature. The sprays on the side are also all colored up and flowered, which is perfect because that makes for a really full straight bunch when I bunch them up. And sometimes when the sides don't fully mature, I actually give a few more stems. So these are going to be true 10 stem bunches. I want to get the yarrow done. I want to do some of the rudbeckia over there. As you can see, there's a lot of yellow. I want to do the feverfew, the foxglove, all that stuff. So I'm going to get harvesting right now. This is just one section of yarrow that I've harvested. I've got another section down there that I'm also going to harvest right now. I harvest yarrow into its own bucket. I might harvest a few sunflowers, but right now they're facing a little bit too east. So if you didn't know this, pro cuts have a tendency to have a bit of a droopy head like this, especially when it's a bigger stem. What I find works really well is I wait midday, and that's like around 1 p.m. where, since the sunflower head follows the sun, it's going to be a little bit more upright and vertical, and the sunflower doesn't wilt, and I get a much straighter head, kind of like this over here. So I don't know why this one hasn't followed the sun, but I typically like to wait. So if you can see over here, this one looks ready, although this one is pretty upright. So I might just go ahead and harvest that one into the same bucket as the yarrow, because these are all dirty stems. So I like to place all the dirty stems with each other and then harvest a separate bucket for all of the non-dirty stems. And typically you can tell if something's dirty by just how fuzzy the stem is over here. So this is a rudbeckia. Look how pretty that Sahara rudbeckia is. But this would also be considered a dirty stem. So these buckets will have a CVBN tablet put in there so that it keeps the bacteria at bay as it conditions. Well, I've got so much yarrow that I can't really even fit anything else in here. So I'm gonna bring this back. There's actually a bunch of stems that I haven't even cut. Some of them are a bit shorter. Some of them, like this, I would wait for the sides to mature. I could even use this for my CSA bouquets this week. Might cut a few more of these since they're ready, but I have still yet a lot of yarrow. I thought this would be the last week, but I think that there's still another week within these stems. These stems look really, really good, strong and healthy. So do those over there. By the way, as you can tell, I don't net my yarrow, and for the most part, it's coming up straight. There's a certain percentage that end up growing sideways, kind of like this. Still usable. This would not, or I mean, this is a really short stem, but I'm trying to find one that would not be as usable, and it's a very, very small percentage. So even here, it's kind of hard to find one that didn't grow straight. But yeah, I don't like to net for harvesting reasons because it makes it a lot less efficient to harvest. So if I could densely plant things together and get away with not netting, I will do that and sacrifice a small percentage of those that might be a little bit more crooked. But look at these rudbeckia. So these were the ones that I sold one bunch in pre-sales already, but I will be cutting many of these to put into the market floor, and they just look so gorgeous right now. So good. Still need to do a update on the farm infrastructure, but we got a pole barn set up, at least the outside structure of it, and then we actually already got a hose bib set up. So there is plumbing that has been trenched, and the point of this is yarrow is such a dirty stem that what I do is I'm going to empty out this water and fill it with new water and then put in a CVBN tablet. I find that if you have any of these leaves on the bottom, sometimes they or you don't get a chance to fully strip the stem clean. Those will automatically turn brown in the bucket after even like 5 minutes. So I want to make sure I get rid of all the leaves, and I also want to make sure that I empty out the dirty water and give this a fresh drink to condition in. So just to give you a visual idea of what I'm talking about, I don't know if you could see the water, it's already tinted yellow. That's from the leaves. There's leaves floating around here, some pollen bits. So it's just good to get it off to a good start if you can, and refilling a bucket is a pretty easy thing to do. One thing to note if you haven't grown rudbeckia is that even though it looks like that there's a ton of blooms, which there are, not every bloom is usable from the perspective that not every single bloom is coming off of its own long stem. So take this one, for example. We've got 3 blooms here. This one's the most ready. But if I were to cut this right now, I'm basically losing these 2 because of the way that it branches. And I would say that this is a good case scenario. If I cut something like this over here, I'm just gonna pull it to the side. Do you see how many side shoots there are? So let me actually cut this one for you. Here it is cut. Do you see how many side shoots there are? I'm really just gonna get 1 usable bloom out of this, which is fine because for something like rudbeckia, you do wanna cut back aggressively. And I find that even if you're letting the side shoots bloom, they're all gonna bloom pretty short like this. So if I cut really, really short, I can actually get another succession in the fall blooming from the same exact plants here. So they're kind of one and done for the spring or the early summer right now, but I'll be able to get some more out of them in the fall. And so I would say that for every bloom that you're seeing, you're probably sacrificing about 3 of the side shoots. In a more ideal scenario, if you're doing something like market bouquets, you would wait also for this part to color up a little bit more and for the petals to unfurl, and maybe even the 3rd part over here, so that way you can actually get 3 blooms out of this 1 stem and you would get rid of the side shorter shoots. So hopefully that makes sense, but because I am selling these to a florist, I'm not going to keep these ones on. I find that if you harvest at this stage for the side blooms over here that are almost ready, they're still going to wilt. You would want to wait a little bit more. Like a good stage to harvest would be like this. Some people even do the wiggle test on these guys. I find that if I can harvest at this stage, they're fine. If I harvest at this stage, it is really hit or miss. Here's some Rudbeckia harvested. There's a few different varieties in here. I'm gonna do the same thing as the yarrow and refill this bucket with clean new water, let it drink out of it, and condition. So I just heard thunder. I'm going to harvest frantically for the other stuff that is near maturity. There's more thunder, and hopefully I will get in before the rain starts. Well, it's about 40 minutes later. The rain is now starting, so I'm gonna pause. It is supposed to clear up later, but I'm glad I got the Rudbeckia and the yarrow harvested. Those were my top priorities. And then I have bee balm, sea holly, foxglove, feverfew, which can all be done either later today or even tomorrow. And I'll still have more yarrow to harvest for tomorrow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at how much stuff I have, take photos, and I'm gonna put them on the Rooted platform for pre-order in case if there's anyone looking for last minute pre-orders between now and 4 p.m. It's a couple hours later. It's around 11 a.m. It was all cloudy until just now. The sun's come out and it is forecasted to rain from 1 p.m. onward. So I jumped outside to harvest some more. This is what I just did in the last 10 minutes. We have a lot of bee balm that is ready, and this is the bunches that I have already harvested. This is actually about 40 in here. I have one bunch of sea holly, so this is only 10 stems that make up all of this over here. The problem is some of them are of varying heights, so some are shorter than others, but I'm going to put this for the market floor as well as this. The good news is that if I don't sell these, I'm going to bring them home and I can definitely use them for my CSA bouquets on Friday. And what's coming in now are these lilies. So I'm gonna see how these do at the market. I have some indoors that I'm letting open so that I can show what they're gonna look like to the florists on Wednesday. And these are all definitely ready to be harvested. They have the little colored up buds that are just starting to crack open. One thing to note is that lily heads are very fragile, so this fell onto the stone and look how much it bruised. This is why you want to buy a bigger bowl, because this one has 4 total heads. Now the smallest one sometimes doesn't open, but the ones on the side will still develop. So I can take off this one and still use this stem in a CSA retail bunch. So just something to be very mindful of when you're handling lilies. Make sure you handle them with care. Luckily, just one fell. So I'm gonna let these quickly condition, and then the lilies are definitely gonna go into the fridge. And I'll probably keep most of the other stuff just in my basement because they just need to make it till Wednesday. And today is already Monday afternoon almost. Everyone, it's Tuesday, June 27th. So today is the day before the market. Now, yesterday I had done a bunch of harvesting. So I got all of the pre-orders harvested and some more. And there's a lot more blooming today because we got a lot more rain, especially the Rudbeckia. There's some more bee balm, and what else do we have? I've got some sunflowers coming in, but it's not enough to sell at the market floor. And if I sell sunflowers at the co-op, it would only be the white light series, which are just coming in, and I only have a couple, so those will probably be available for next week. But I will be harvesting a little bit more today, and the goal is to get everything bunched up. What I do want to do is clean up a bit of the field. So I had talked at length about me having a thrips infestation. I think the rain has actually helped me with that because it's definitely disrupted the reproductive cycle. Rain helps drown out the larva that is in the soil. I also applied a beneficial nematode drench about 4 days ago, but that is just too early for any progress to take hold. Normally it would take close to 2 weeks for you to see anything. But if you look over here, there's a lot of stuff that's just heavy hanging over. I need to do some cleanup here, even though it looks like the thrips situation has helped a little bit or has resolved a little bit. I want to get on top of everything and remove everything that I absolutely don't want even to perennialize for next year that was thrips infected. So that way I proactively am managing the situation with the dahlias and the lisianthus. So those two crops were where I did the nematode drench first, and I'm going to continue applying that drench every 10 days. So there's a lot of work to do. As you can see, all of the Rudbeckia seems to be blooming at once, which is great because I have a lot of bouquets to make this week. In fact, I think I have so many flowers that I might be able to sell some a la carte off of Facebook, and that is an even better situation for me because then I charge a delivery fee. I deliver to the same area that the CSA deliveries go to, so it really is a win-win there. So it's time to bunch up the flowers. I have some sleeves that are pre-stamped, and then I have my pack list over here. So I'm just gonna get out into the garage and start bunching them up. So just now I bunched them into bunches of 10. Some of the yarrow have a little bit more than 10, but this is roughly the size that I'm looking for. So this is more of a mixed type of color palette for the market floor. For those with the pre-orders, I have their name written on it. The other thing that our co-op does is we each have a different rubber band color. So this one is yellow over here for me, and that just means that whenever something gets picked up on the market floor, they know who to attribute that sale to. So, you know, there's like black, green, blue. We all get our own rubber band colors. Here's the rubber band over here. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So the pre-orders all have their names labeled, and then the market floor doesn't. And that's how I know when I go to the market what goes onto the market floor and what doesn't. And so not everything is going to sell on the market floor, but similar to a farmer's market, you want to pile it high. I definitely bring the least amount of flowers, but everyone, they contribute to the market floor, and it makes it look really, really lush and bountiful. And I think it makes for a much better shopping experience. So there's a couple of things I want to harvest. I still need to get those two wrapped up. I'm just having lunch right now, and I'm still going to harvest after lunch. It stopped raining for now, but it's a little bit sunny, so I'm going to wait until it cools down a bit to do some more harvesting. But this is already, I believe, 16 bunches. And yeah, I had, how many bunches did I have for pre-ordered? I have, let's see, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bunches. So I had 8 bunches that are pre-ordered, and then 8 bunches for market floor. And I'll probably have another, I don't know, like 2 or 3 in addition for the market floor. I'm honestly exhausted right now. I went back out to harvest some more Rudbeckia. Lo and behold, I found some thrips on some of the Rudbeckia. So I started looking frantically at the rest of the Rudbeckia, especially the ones that I harvested, and then some of the other ones that I was going to harvest. There was still a good patch that was untouched. I harvested those so fast. I'm hoarding them for my CSA on Friday, but unfortunately, there is quite a bit of Rudbeckia that has been overtaken by pests. And I took a closer look on some other stuff, including my foxglove over here. I wanted to go out to get some more stems, to get some more fuller heads, and they're also all thrip infested. So I'm going to tell the customer that I can't sell her this bunch and refund her. So yeah, pre-co-op prep turn into ripping out parts of the field, which I am doing a separate video on. So you'll get to learn more of that later. But I'm pretty happy with what I accomplished this week and what I'm bringing to the market. So I think we're looking at 17 bunches at the end. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? Hey guys, it's market day, June 28th. It's around 6:15 a.m. I just loaded up the car. It's going to take us about that 55 minutes to an hour to get there, which places us around 7:15 to 7:30 in terms of arrival. Now we do need that time normally to process everything, meaning those who have pre-order bunches, those bunches go into the designated spots, and then everything else goes onto market floor. So because there are 5 or 6 growers who consistently bring stuff, we do need that time to get organized, to set up. So I think today will actually be a lot calmer than the last 2 weeks. I don't think we did as many in pre-orders. So we'll see what happens. I might actually come home with a bit of flowers, which is totally okay because I want to spend the next couple of days prioritizing getting rid of the thrip infested crops versus harvesting more for my CSA. So anything that doesn't sell here, assuming that it still looks good over the next couple of days and still can get a good decent vase life out of it, I will use it for those retail bouquets. Hey guys, so I am back from the market. It's about 1 p.m. right now. I sold 2 more bunches of yarrow, bringing my total to $107 this week, and that includes refunding a bunch of foxglove, which the customer was more than understanding about the thrip situation. So I have a few blooms left, and what I'm going to do is I am going to make retail bouquets out of them and push them out on Facebook Marketplace. This is what I have left. None of the Rudbeckia sold, none of the bee balm sold. I sold the 2 bunches of yarrow, as I said. I was surprised that this didn't sell, but I have a bunch of sunflowers. I think they're gonna pair really, really well. What's really great is that everything's already been harvested. I don't need to do any of the work there. Everything's already stripped too, so making the bouquets will be really quickly. I just always find it very interesting to see what sells and what doesn't. For example, last week we had marigold sell. This week, none of the yellows and the oranges really got touched. It was a lot of the pinks that did well. So we cater primarily to wedding florists, people who do a lot of event work. So those blush tones, pastel tones are always really, really popular. That's why the yarrow does really well. What I love about this market is just seeing how stems that normally wouldn't move in a farmer's market, or things that we don't like to grow for retail because they may not have a long vase life, are really great for these kind of customers. So for example, something like a pansy where we can't get that stem length, it is great for centerpiece work. And there's a grower who grew violas and pansies and did really, really well with that. I also learned about other ways to use flowers such as baptisia. This is actually baptisia that has gone to seed, and that is great also for event work. And today, or for the last 3 weeks, I would say, there was a grower who was growing double petunias, and they look so good. They're like the Italian Allegretta, double Allegrettas. I definitely want to grow these next year, but they have been selling like gangbusters because they look great for floral work or event work. So I always learn when I go to the co-op. I always observe, I always listen, and it's definitely worth my time, even if I'm just selling $100. But at the end of the day, $100 is also better than $0. So if I have the time, I always make an effort to go, just because I get that cash flow as well as the knowledge. Last but not least, the co-op does take 18% of whatever we sell. So that 18% goes towards things like hiring a dedicated market manager every single Wednesday to manage the pickups, as well as just making sure that things run smoothly. It also goes towards buying the craft paper sleeves and the rubber bands. Each of us gets 500 of each to start off with, and if you run out of those, then you're on your own to buy some more. But overall, the fees go towards just overall maintenance costs. For another example, we use MailChimp for our email platform. Something has to pay for that kind of fixed operating costs. And so that's what the 18% goes to, in addition to buyers who need to buy a buyer's pass. It's $75 for the entire season. So I will do a separate video going through the details. But if you want a little bit more information, including how much I sold my bunches for per variety, a breakdown of what I sold, what's done well for me variety wise, especially if you're someone who is catering to wedding event type of florists, I now have a Patreon. So there will be an article that accompanies this video that I'll put on the Patreon site. So if for the price of a nice cup of coffee, $5 a month, you'll get access to that kind of information and more. And when I do videos referencing like integrated pest management or other stuff, I always try to link all of the studies and the resources that I used to inform me to make those videos. So I try to make those blog posts as detailed as possible. They are also living documents, meaning that if I learn something new, if there's an update, I will also update through there, because it's very hard for me to edit a video that's already been uploaded. So hope this video is helpful for you. Let me know if you have any comments or questions below. And the link to my Patreon is also in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.